Phoenixes. Heather here with the 6th episode of Release Your Phoenix. This week I had thought about doing a podcast on sacred sexual energy, but divine timing would have it that one is going to be postponed, and I feel very guided to do a part 2 on the masculine and feminine energy. It's come to my attention as I've processed some of the ideas around these energies that there are different ways that we go about healing them as masculine or feminine dominant. And the first thing that I wanted to discuss is the idea that in society today, we have masculine and feminine energies that are being expressed in very distorted ways. We have what would otherwise be feminine dominant energies that are expressing predominantly as distorted masculine energies. That was my case. We have masculine energies that are presenting as masculine dominant energies, but in very distorted ways to the exclusion of the feminine energy. I've observed a severe repression of a portion of the feminine energy. That red river, that wild woman that we had discussed in the previous podcast. And this is not something that is wrong with people. This is something that is ready to be healed collectively. That our souls have chosen this time period to show up in order to level up in. And I wanted to discuss just a little bit about what some of these energies are, and also just have the understanding that there are so many different ways to approach a habit or an expression or a behavior that we have that does not feel in alignment with our ideal selves, with the version of ourselves that we see us being, that we are striving to be. You can look at these behaviors or these habits or these wounds or whatever it is that feels out of alignment for you or that's underneath the misalignment for you in so many ways. One of them is the way that I addressed it in my 3rd podcast through, just identifying the emotion, identifying where it is in your body, going into meditation. Sometimes it is an event and there's actually some trauma there that we can go in and heal. Sometimes it's just a belief system. Sometimes it's, a deeply held belief system that's more difficult to shift. There are so many different things underneath these that you can address and use different tools for healing and shifting. And at the same time, there are different ways of getting to the understanding of where that layer is. And so I'm offering another perspective here, one that had some value for me, obviously, in my healing journey. It will not have value for everyone. Again, perfectly fine. So the first energies that I would like to discuss is the masculine energy, because this is the one that I have observed to be expressed in a distorted way most prominently. And also, just to come back around here, we're not separating the masculine and feminine energies by way of you should only be expressing this way or that. Again, it's a yin and a yang. Every feminine dominant has a little masculine. Every masculine dominant has a little feminine, and it must be that way in order for balance to be had. And I've met people who are more balanced in their expression of masculine, feminine. Everyone has their own balance of the energies that these are expressed in, but one cannot progress without the other. There cannot be any kind of successful action, even in breath. You breathe in, and that's feminine, you're opening and receiving. You breathe out, and you're contracting the lungs and pushing the breath out. In childbirth, which is only experienced by women, there's the feminine aspect of the creation inside of her, but it is the masculine that pushes out. It's also the feminine understanding of the baby, knowing intuitively how to move within the body to allow itself to be pressed out. So everything in life has this masculine and feminine energy, including our healing techniques. And the beautiful masculine energy has been expressed in a distorted way for quite some time in our patriarchal society. And so, we see men who go silent, who are insensitive, who are not allowed to feel any of the feminine expression. People who are closed-minded and inflexible. People who are insensitive. People who stifle their own truth. These are all distorted versions of the masculine energy. There are people who become explosive and violent, or maybe indifferent. We see people who use strength to create conflict and separation. We see ego and pride. We see severe aggressiveness and we see men who are high testosterone, or the masculine who is high testosterone is very aggressive in our society. And this is obviously not everyone. I'm just saying, obviously society in general, we look around and we can see these things around us. And I could see a lot of these things in myself. We see the lack of emotion because of the repressed ability from childhood to express that. We see men being domineering, stubborn, stagnant, cold-hearted, highly competitive, where they want to destroy all perceived competition to conquer and become the highest. We see men out of control and reckless that don't want to grow up. We see bullying. And these are not just men. This is just that masculine dominant energy, or that masculine energy as it comes out in its distorted forms, even through women, even through the feminine dominant. We see some of these traits. We see traits of using power to destroy and separate, feeling like they have to know it all, use information and knowledge to control, suppress, or manipulate others. These are all distorted energies, distorted expressions of that energy that we identify as a masculine energy within each one of us. Now, when you have these energies expressing in a balanced way, that masculine described energy expressing in a balanced way, we see freedom. Freedom in so many areas. That is the masculine's number one source of seeking, is freedom. Independence. Working well alone. Speaking truth even if others disagree. Honoring themselves. Having direction and focus. Being stable and reliable and loyal, standing fiercely for what's right, with passion, discipline, and confidence, believing in themselves and knowing that they will succeed. We see strength, We see using strength to bring harmony and peace rather than to create conflict and destroy. We see purpose and achievement oriented, accomplishments being important, but not in a way that tears down others. We see leadership without ego. We see assertiveness without aggression. We see determination that's empathetic. We see courage and adventurousness and a love of exploration. We see persistence and ambition. We see somebody who is a go-getter in this energy. We see someone who is rational and level-headed. We see healthy competition and a fearlessness, not a recklessness. We see this beautiful guardian protector that does no harm. We see this beautiful, powerful being that uses power to, again, create and unite. We see a curiosity and intrigue by the unknown, a searching for knowledge and discoveries rather than feeling as if they already have the answers, an open-mindedness. So these are all energies that would be described as masculine, being expressed in both balanced and distorted ways. When I read through this list, I recognized a lot of the energies that I had, and it was actually different areas of my life that some of those areas I was expressing balanced and other areas I was not. And so being able to just understand where I was out of balance in some of these areas just gave me another perspective on where I may have had some imbalances and where I can start to look to dive underneath that. Now, if we take a look at the feminine energies in their distorted expressions, we can see weakness and powerlessness, resignation to what is without being able to change it. We see sometimes being overbearing and manipulative, unable to nourish or love ourselves. Oh, that's such a huge one for the feminine energy. Nurturing others at the expense of nurturing ourselves. We see jealousy, neediness, submission, the sort of doormat syndrome. We see victimhood and a martyr complex, paranoia, discernment being impaired, the intuition that ends up having to get louder and louder and louder to speak to us, causing the body and emotions, external circumstances outside of ourselves to all be out of alignment and out of balance until we will actually finally hear the messages that they're trying to convey. Having to, quote unquote, learn the hard way. We see people who are an energy expression that is overly sentimental and moody, that is burdened or distracted by the body and physical cycles, including cycles in the body and nature. So this would be in a man even being thrown off by the cycles of nature, being thrown off by illnesses or any kind of cycles that they have within their body, reproductive cycles, anything like that. And obviously in the feminine, it's more pronounced in the feminine dominant energies. We all know the burden and distraction of the body and physical cycles of PMS and things like that. Obsessions with outer appearance is a distorted feminine energy. Being kind of spaced out or ditzy. Passivity. Passive aggressiveness. Being blocked in their ability to receive. That is a huge one for the feminine energy. Not listening to or honoring ourselves, which also translates to listening to and honoring others. An unworthiness. a creative spirit or energy that is blocked. And again, this is masculine or feminine dominant who have this creative spirit within all of us. And that being blocked is a distorted feminine energy. Starting projects without completing them, and problems with delegating. Now, when we see the feminine energy work into its balanced expression, we do find that tenderness, softness, and patience of the good girl. We do see that nurturing, nourishing, caring, and supportive energy, but it's not weakness or powerlessness. It's not by being a doormat. It's by loving freely and surrendering rather than submitting. There is a huge difference in surrendering, allowing, having flexibility while still honoring yourself. They're sensitive without being overly sentimental. There's wisdom in listening to the intuition as it whispers, to the wild woman as she whispers to us. Being in touch with our emotions and feelings while still allowing for them to be expressed without being overbearing. And I say the wild woman, but again, there's a wild man in there too, right? That intuition of the man, that gut intuition, that wisdom of man that comes from that feminine energy. Being grounded and present in the body is a balanced expression of femininity. Appreciating physical beauty without being outwardly obsessed with it. Connection to nature, working with nature. A sense of connection to all, a sense of oneness, a sense of vastness and receptivity, openness, listening and honoring. Fertility, creativity, problem solving, thinking outside of the box, using that right brain system, supporting the whole creative process from seed planting to germination to incubation, nourishment, and harvest. The feminine energy is a midwife to all you are in this body to give birth to not just children for women, but for everyone, to give birth to ideas, to art, to writing, to projects and systems, organizations and businesses, to allow your body to be the conduit for this energy and these things. Being communicative and expressive, but not to the point that it's so loud that it's drowning out listening and receptivity. Being playful rather than being over-focused on trivial matters. Being irreverent, relaxed, reset. Allowing yourself to be non-doing. Having a nesting impulse rather than being obsessed with security. Creating a safe space. The masculine is that protector, guarder energy, but the feminine energy brings in that emotion, that feeling of security and safeness, of being supported and held. Trust being impaired and being a hoarding kind of energy is the distorted version of that, kind of buying into a false sense of security by outward things. If you have a stewardship of resources, guidance within you, collaboration and working with others, a sense of cooperation, rather than giving away power or having your power being diffused. There are so many of these things that we see expressed in people in beautiful ways, and oftentimes it becomes unclear whether it is the masculine or the feminine because of the ways that it expresses differently in the masculine or feminine dominant. But each one of these energies can be attributed to a feminine or masculine energy source. And each one of them has these distorted expressions, many of which I had so many on these lists when I started this process that were so imbalanced. And now I'm able to look through this list after having done the work, and I feel so much more embodied in both of my energies. And it's very clear around me that there are tools that are needed to help others gain this, that there are tools that are being sought to help others gain this. And when it became clear to me that I wanted to guide my podcast in this way this week, I really wanted to have a masculine energy present to discuss some of this with. And what I found, and I learned something new this week about it, after speaking to several men, I found that we gravitate toward different tools in our healing, depending on if we are masculine or feminine dominant in expression of our energies. Now, when I first explored these energies, when I first began exploring these energies, I was working exclusively with a feminine mentor who works pretty much exclusively in the energetic and emotional realms, which was very comfortable for me, I've realized, because I am feminine dominant. And so working in these energetic and emotional realms is comfortable for me. It's what I know. What I also found, though, is that when I included a masculine mentor into my growth process and healing process, who was more in the cognitive realm, I was able to make completely different, powerful shifts and understanding, and completely different ways of growing. And I was able to see both of those worlds and felt like I didn't realize that it was a masculine feminine approach at the time. I literally just understood this week. But I could see that each one of those approaches had their own pieces of it that were missing. I could see how there were areas in my life, on my journey, that I was not able to address through the feminine alone. And that understanding cognitively from the masculine energy of cognition really propelled my journey. And I could see in that masculine energy how there were things that were held back because of only the cognitive approach. And I could see even more clearly as I moved into, I believe it was my third podcast, where I had recognized that there were people who were only approaching this at a cognitive level. And there were some really deep things that were still happening there that needed a deeper approach. And what I realized is that we have these layers. There are things, and it's not the same things for every one of us, but there are things within each one of us that we can simply hear a new idea or a new approach to, and it automatically creates this shift in us, and we just start looking at that thing differently from that point forward. And then there are other things that are deeper. There are other things that are more difficult to shift, whether those are thought processes. Like for me, one of them right now, even still, is with money. And I recognize that. I have had a more difficult time shifting into a new paradigm with that. I've been working on this for over a year on a regular basis, both through the masculine and feminine, uncovering new layers of understanding of where I'm at on it. And I do feel that I'm almost through the process, which is great. I've made amazing strides in it, I've needed both. It's been more of a struggle. Whereas, and things like anxiety are usually very deeply rooted and not as easily shifted. We can shift areas of it, but there will still oftentimes be that lingering thing that it's a struggle. Depression, there are many, many things. And sometimes it's just a thought process or an understanding. Sometimes it's our worthiness. It really depends on what our personal struggles are. But there are things that are more difficult to shift through using only one energy. What I found as I was looking for a masculine counterpart to discuss this idea of the distorted expression and the way that I want to approach it right now, which is through looking at the wounds and the belief systems that are underneath these distorted expressions, going into it from the feminine energy. I realized that there was some pushback on that. And as I spoke to more men, and I had recognized this a little bit previously, but I really gained clarity on the idea that the men in my life overwhelmingly have had this feeling of wanting to figure it out themselves and have gone through it cognitively and with masculine energy. And they've created all of these tools to use at a cognitive level that is doing and being, and it's doing an action, right? It's, I see what I want and I become. I am. Like, I do this. I move forward to this. And that's powerful in so many ways. And it created incredible shifts for me as well. But what I found is that there were some things that I couldn't shift that way. I found that coming into it from an energetic space, from an emotional space, getting to a deeper area of healing of that and actually understanding, nourishing that part of myself, coming to it from that feminine aspect, shifted things much more easily. And again, there were things that I came out from the feminine only that shifted much more easily cognitively. What I recognized as I was discussing this with these men is that even in our healing, there must be this balance of masculine and feminine. And what I realized further is that there are things that we can do outside of ourselves that have masculine and feminine healing qualities, like, for example, a strenuous workout, or, sitting down and creating plans, writing out things. These are actually masculine energies, although writing does incorporate some feminine energy into it. Even Reiki is a masculine energy of sending energy, allowing, healing energy to flow through me, yes, but I'm doing action with it. I'm sending it somewhere. And we've got the feminine energies of meditation, being quiet and still, being one and present in nature, even hot bubble baths or whatever. These things are more feminine. And these are all outside of ourselves. These are things that we can do that are masculine or feminine that help to shift energy. Yoga is actually masculine, but helps to guide and, help energy flow and balance. These are all things that help with these understandings. And I incorporate every one of these things into my life. But what I realized is that internally, we have to embrace the masculine and the feminine in order for the smoothest healing process to happen. It's not that you can't do it all through the masculine or you can't do it all through the feminine, but Just like there are certain things you can come at with a new understanding, just hearing it, and you flip a switch. It happens very easily. There are also things that you can come at a subconscious level energetically through the feminine energy that will flip and switch very easily, literally without effort. You have this thing cognitively, you understand it, you now have a new perspective. Or you have this thing that's a deeply held belief system or emotional wound that you come out from a feminine aspect of it at that level of the energy and emotion, and you can flip that subconsciously, and all of a sudden you're feeling more love for yourself, you're honoring yourself more, you're experiencing and handling situations differently, you're expressing yourself differently because you came at it from that level. And I also recognize that men, or the masculine energy, the men in my life, tend to come at these things from the cognitive level because that's where they're comfortable. That's the space that they work in, because that is the masculine energy. And I know amazing, beautiful souls. I know amazing, successful coaches that focus in this realm. And they have amazing results. Just beautiful, incredible results for the people that they work with. I have had incredible results from men who work in this realm. And I see women, or the feminine energy, that is very comfortable working in that energetic realm, and they don't stray much into the cognitive abilities, the cognitive ways of it. We see a lot of women who are energy healers, who are psychics, who have these clear senses that are very well developed, but the cognition is not always there. And I've found in myself, and I truly believe that when you bring those two together in your body, the cognitive as well as the energetic and emotional, that's where you gain a new level. And that's where you find a new sense of flow in your healing. I hear oftentimes from the masculine how it's just going to take time, and it's just going to take some work, and it's just going to basically be a struggle. And they look at that as something that they've overcome, something that they've embraced, that process. And I've realized that it's very much a part of the masculine energy of, I've found out it works, and I'm going to stick with it, rinse and repeat. And that I've heard, I've heard and I've seen so often is true with the masculine energy. You find what works, rinse and repeat. And yeah, you can absolutely do that. But one of my favorite mentors, who's actually a man, has described that as the struggle bus. And it's fine. You can ride that struggle bus. You don't have to go and find the ways that are more in flow that make this healing easier. You don't have to. You can create as much pride as you want in being on that struggle bus. But the feminine does it too, through only doing it in the feminine energy and not having that cognitive level of it, right? And I hear from the feminine energy too. Sometimes it just takes time. Sometimes we just gotta wade through the muck. And you know what? If you incorporate both internally, that cognitive understanding, those perspective shifts, along with that feminine energetic healing, really anything can actually be shifted very easily. We just have to figure out which levels to use that energy at, and we can have great insights, great understanding, great movement, great growth very rapidly. And some of these things have many layers to them that we have to come at, and we have to be open and playful in our healing, and we have to be adventurous in our exploration of healing and open-minded in our exploration of healing in order to work through these layers. Some layers are more deeply held for some people than they are others. Some people have the money thing all figured out, and they're dealing with completely different aspects of it. You know, some people's wealth frequency is on point. They don't struggle with it at all. Mine, that has many layers for me, because I was raised in poverty with all of these, or near poverty, with all of these belief systems that I'm working through. But what I find is that if I'm open and playful, and I am working toward that healing, the universe brings me the energy that I need to heal it, whether it's a masculine or a feminine energy. It brings me the energy that I need to work through that next layer. And you get to dig down and down. And when you're playful and you're open-minded about the energies that are coming to you for healing, and you're receptive to those energies that resonate with you, this becomes a very fun, fulfilling, delicious journey. It's not this struggle of seeing these things in yourself that you wish you could change and working against them. That's a sign that you are not in balance. Anytime that there's struggle or resistance, you're not in balance. And when you can find that flow and appreciate the journey of healing, because it never ends. It's a spiral that you continuously dive deeper and deeper into yourself and reveal more and more of that soul and express yourself more and more authentically and fully. It becomes such a beautiful game in this life that, you know, people always tell me that they admire the amount of self-care that I have in my life and the richness of self-care that I have in my life, the many different ways that I approach that. And it's because of that openness and playfulness and that pleasure seeking in all ways, and even finding pleasure in the healing, in diving into these depths of these emotions to really find the gift of healing that is in there, to find that balanced expression and to feel more whole is just such a beautiful, fun, and delicious journey for me. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be difficult. So I am going to be releasing again a second component to this podcast of just a way of addressing the masculine feminine energy and bringing some of those things into balance. It'll be through another guided meditation. I think that the guided meditation that I am looking at doing this weekend is a powerful one if you are involved in understanding it all with the astronomical events that are happening currently, with the kind of shadow of the retrograde leaving us and the Lionsgate portal being open currently. I don't know a ton about astrology. I don't know a ton about these events, the, Star of Sirius, and, which planets are in alignment and in retrograde and all of this. I don't know a lot of that, but I do know that I have been seeing around me a lot of energy shifts right now that are not coincidental, and the people around me having a lot of the same experiences that are in alignment with the energies that I know are being expressed right now in a cosmic sense. And so this meditation that I would like to do is going to be a pretty powerful one to be in alignment with those energies as we close out that portal. And again, it's just another tool. So that's what I'm here for, is to share the tools in my toolbox, knowing that we can share some cognitive understanding, we can share some discussion, and I'll share some of the feminine energy of shifting those things as well. So please do reach out to me, send me a comment, let me know how these things are working for you, what you're gaining from these things. I love your feedback. It's a beautiful confirmation of the fact that I am here expressing myself because you need to hear me. So, and I love to hear it. It really is nourishing to me to hear the experiences that others are having and the shifts that are being made. So please don't be shy. And I'm still putting together the podcast for the Sacred Sexual, and I'm very much looking forward to that as well, as I'm sure that you guys are. And of course I have a million other ideas. So until next time, thanks for listening.